So one question I frequently get on this channel is which pocket video camera is the best, the Lumix GX80 or the original Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. If you've watched any of my earlier videos, you will know that I absolutely love both of these cameras, but it is a bit of an odd comparison because they are in many ways vastly different camera systems, but for some reason they often get compared, and I think there are a few reasons for this. They both have micro four third mounts with similar size sensors, they're both pocketable size cameras, and they both boast great video features for their size. But there are of course a number of differences between the two, which for me at least makes me use them for very different purposes. If you find yourself stuck between deciding whether to pick up the original BMPCC or the Lumix GX80, stick around to find out which one will work best for you. So in terms of overall tech specs, I'll try and keep this fairly top line. Chances are you're familiar with both of them by now. But the GX80 has a 16 megapixel micro four thirds sensor. It's capable of shooting 4K video up to 30 frames per second with a 1.1 times crop and then 60 frames per second in 1080p. It shoots in an 8-bit codec with a bit rate of 150 megabits, and you're able to use the natural profile, which has always been one of my favorites. And you can also upload the Cinelight D profile onto the camera if that's something you want to shoot with. The GX80 has 5-axis image stabilization built into the camera, and if you've used any of the Lumix micro four thirds cameras before, you will know that this is absolutely amazing. The BMPCC on the other hand has a 2 megapixel Super 16 sensor. It's capable of shooting 1080p up to 30 frames per second in 12-bit. And although the bitrate isn't advertised online, from what I've heard it's sitting at around 300 megabits. You're able to shoot raw video internally with the BMPCC, or shoot in ProRes 422 and 422 HQ, which are some of my favourite codecs to work with. But the BMPCC doesn't have any internal image stabilization, so you will need to rig this camera up or rely on stabilized lenses. So on paper at least, it's a really mixed bag here. The GX80 has a slightly larger sensor with a higher megapixel count. It can shoot in higher resolutions at higher frame rates, and it also has internal image stabilization. The BMPCC on the other hand has much more robust video codecs. It can shoot in 12-bit at a higher bit rate, and it can also shoot raw video, which is pretty mind-blowing for a camera of this size. And from this initial comparison, you can probably see where this is going. The original BMPCC is a dedicated cinema camera with incredible video specs, whereas the GX80 is a hybrid photo video camera with good video specs and a more user-friendly set of features. And this theme stays consistent when we start to look at design and functionality. The GX80 is a modern looking camera with a rangefinder design, a built-in EVF, and has Lumix's classic menu system, which is really easy to navigate and responsive to use. It's got a quick and snappy autofocus system, focus peaking and histograms for monitoring exposure. The BMPCC is basically a small chunk of metal with a hand grip. It's got a pretty basic menu system for selecting your video settings, and it does have focus peaking, but you have to apply this manually every time you switch on the camera. The camera also has a histogram and zebras for monitoring your exposure, but there's no EVF here, there's just a 3.5-inch LCD screen on the back. And when we talk about image quality, this is where the two systems differ even more drastically. So the BMPCC with its 12-bit colour and its raw capabilities produces a very organic looking image with amazing colour tones and soft highlights. The Blackmagic Gen 1 colour science really is something special. It's a cinematic look that's unique to this specific camera and it's beautiful. The GX80 also produces a nice looking image, but it's immediately apparent with the 8-bit codec that you're not able to push things around as much as you can with the BMPCC before things start to fall apart and you start to introduce artifacts. I definitely don't want to take away from the fact that you can still get some incredible looking footage with this camera. There's a reason why I've kept it around so long, but it's just important to be a little less aggressive in the color grade, especially if you're used to using cameras with higher bit rates and deeper color codecs. And so when we look at these two cameras side by side, it's clear that this was never going to be a case of which camera is better, because they both excel in different areas. Ultimately, the Lumix GX80 is an all-around hybrid photo video camera that's great for people that want to take amazing images but also want to get good quality 4K footage in a tiny body. The BMPCC OG is for people who are wanting the purest and most organic looking image, but they're also willing to put up with all of the quirks that come with owning a camera like this. I know that there's a few other options out there from the likes of Fujifilm and Sony, so if you've got another favourite pocket video camera setup, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.